1. Julianna, Monday, July 5th. I poured myself a glass of red wine from an open bottle at the bar and pictured Michael sitting across from me. We were having a nightcap now that the diners had finished their desserts and coffee and were headed home, their tummies full of pasta with homemade Italian sauce. He raised his glass to make a toast, to having me all to himself for a few weeks. I was about to do something I considered reckless, abandoning the restaurant for 2 weeks to go on vacation in Italy. Before Michael, I'd never been out of the country, much less on a cross-Atlantic flight, but he'd planned our adventure to the last detail. We'd never really taken a honeymoon. I was too worried about leaving the restaurant unsupervised, but he'd finally convinced me to relax. Samantha and Alex could easily handle things while I was gone. I guess it just wasn't in my DNA to be so carefree, a work ethic I'd inherited from my father. Little by little, Michael had shown me that it was okay to have fun. Taking time off for an overdue celebration of our marriage was part of enjoying life. He was a hopeless romantic. I dabbed my eyes with a cocktail napkin. Now I was the romantic one, clinging to a distant memory. I was also feeling more hopeless. It had been 95 days since I'd last seen my husband. I started to take a sip of wine when I heard a voice behind me. "We need to talk," she said. I whipped around to see a woman leaning against the hostess stand at the front of my restaurant. We had closed over an hour ago. My bar manager and chef had just left for the night, leaving me alone to finish some paperwork. She seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. Her voice sounded like a girl's, but she looked more like a real housewife. She wore a tight navy dress with a scooped neckline that accentuated her rounded breasts. Gold bracelets adorned both wrists, and her heels were so high that her feet arched unnaturally. Her bleached blonde hair was tousled about her face, and her skin was deeply tanned, the color that came from hours of soaking up the Florida sun. "We're closed," I said, perplexed that this woman was somehow in my restaurant at nearly 1:00 a.m.
"You're Julianna, right?"
she asked. Her eyes squinted slightly. Most of my customers, even the regulars, called me Miss Sandoval. I couldn't put my finger on it, but there was something off-putting about the informal way she said my first name. Or maybe I was just irritable from a long night. Holidays were always busy, and that night's 4th of July dinner crowd had been no exception. "Look, I'm sorry, but we're closed," I repeated. "You'll need to come back during normal hours." For an instant, I thought about my pistol in the safe in the back office. It wasn't that I felt in danger. She looked more like the type who'd be robbed than someone who'd do the robbing. Still, her presence was strange, especially on the one night when my stepson was out of town, leaving me to close the restaurant alone.
"He's not who you think he is,"
she said. I shook my head, trying to make sense of her words. Was she drunk? High? And who was she talking about? It didn't matter. She was keeping me from going home, and I was already exhausted. I reached in my jacket pocket for the key to the front door and stepped from behind the expansive bar to escort her out. As I approached, I got a better look at her face. She was heavily made up, with contoured cheekbones, lash extensions, and plumped-up lips. I reiterated that we were closed and she needed to leave.
"You stupid bitch,"
she sneered.
"You don't have a clue."
I stopped in my tracks. My entire body stiffened. The hatred in her voice was personal, as if she knew me, which she didn't. Before I could respond, I heard a blast outside. Glass shattered like someone had dropped a full tray of dishes onto the concrete floor. Her eyes bulged as she gasped for air, opening and closing her mouth like a hooked fish. Her doll-like face was now oddly contorted. She stumbled forward a few steps, struggling to maintain her balance. When she tried to speak, blood spewed from her mouth. I screamed. She lurched